Hello and welcome to Parently, where we tap into the unique experiences and perspectives of parents to celebrate the joys and honor the challenges of child rearing. With new interviews each week, this is a podcast for moms and dads seeking an empowering community and a little levity. Now here's your host, Kelsey Higgins.
Hello and welcome to Parently. Today's guest is Kate Lundquist. Kate, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. Great.
I don't even know where to start with you. We've got a lot to cover. Let's start just a background. Sure. Where'd you grow up? Yep. What was childhood like? Give me a quick sense.
All right. Well, I am a Minnesota girl my whole life, with a short stint in Chicago, short stint in Detroit, but otherwise I'm born and raised in Duluth. I lived up on the Canadian border for a whopping 16 years. Talk about rural and remote. And that is what most people don't realize about me. Those that have met me in the last 5.5 years since moving to the Twin Cities. My new community has pretty surprised that that's where I spent most of my parenting years. And I'm a school teacher now. Thank goodness for editing. I'm a school teacher now, but my background since moving to the Twin Cities really revolved around politics and like community engagement. And eventually I got hired to work at a nonprofit that recruited women to run for office. And we trained and really tried to equip them and give them the confidence to move forward with that.
Super cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, after the election, we had a huge set of layoffs, two different sets of layoffs, and I did not make the cut. It has whittled down to a very small organization now, unfortunately. And so that really forced me to think, what's next? And I had still had my teaching degree from early in my career, and I never thought I'd end up back there. But here I am. And I think it is absolutely the most important place for me to be right now, and I'm so thankful to be there. So yes, and then I was married for 21 years to Jake, my co-parent. We divorced, and in that process, after a really amazing marriage, for the most part, I'd say I also am a breast cancer survivor. And so after breast cancer in 2019, our marriage really started to fade, and it was a slow death over time. But so we can get into that if you need. And so once the unthinkable, we never thought it would be us. Never. That was not an option, never discussed, not a goal, obviously, but it happened spring of 2024. And in that process, he came out of the closet. And it has been a great joy and privilege to be able to walk alongside him and just help him and be a solid partner in that way with him as he has tried to figure out who he is. And then, we've just started, that's, I guess, my hobby now, just like your podcast, is I love telling our story. I love telling our story of our marriage, parenting journey. We have 6 kids, 4 biological, 2 through international adoption, and we've also lost a baby along the way. So, Jake and I have such a shared history, and so just because we've gotten divorced doesn't mean I would want to stop celebrating what we built together, and then just really bringing a spotlight to what it's like to be queer nowadays. And, so many people, it's more than anybody would ever realize, just kind of getting to this spot in life and going, am I really who I was made to be? And, people have all sorts of opinions about it, but I know what I've lived. And helping Jake become who he's meant to be has been just a real joy of my life.
So many directions we could go.
So
here,
many.
Kate.
I know. There's so many. Take your pick. And then all you have to do is throw me a prompt and I'll go.
Okay, let's start with where'd you meet Jake?
Oh, Bemidji State. So like I said, I've lived all over Minnesota, and Bemidji is the one I left out in that introduction. Bemidji State, it's in northern Minnesota, again, and I never thought I'd live anywhere colder or further north or smaller. It is a town of maybe 10,000, and I really, growing up in Duluth, I thought Bemidji was really a small town. Little did I know that I would end up living for 16 years in Roseau, Minnesota, and Warroad in that area, which are populations of around 1,800 and 2,800 or 16. It's very
Wow.
small.
Wow.
And just far, I mean, no McDonald's, I tell the kids, and my students, I didn't have McDonald's or Target, you know.
Why did you end up there? How?
Yeah, Jake's career.
Okay.
We had moved out to Detroit as soon as we had graduated from college, thinking that's where we would start our life. We had hoped for Chicago, but ended up in Detroit. And long story short, the job opportunity that we moved for wasn't up his alley. He was really miserable. The teaching market was really tough in the early 2000s. It was still really saturated, if you can believe it. And it wasn't home for us. And it was basically like anything to get back to Minnesota, where our family is. And somebody told him about the different manufacturing opportunities that are up there. He's an engineer, designer, and Marvin Windows is a company up there. And there's also Polaris Industries. So those are the two major manufacturing opportunities that brought us up there and kept us up there. And small town life was very charming for a long time.
Sure.
And then I guess I'm not shy to say that, you know, once the current administration, once Trump had his first term, I started to just see people act and speak in ways that didn't feel like that small town charm that I knew and loved anymore. It started to feel like my values weren't aligning with my community. And when you live in a town that is that small, you know, your doctors go to church with you. You see your teachers at the grocery store. You see your colleagues down the street, and you raise kids together. And when you have a baby, it's like, you know, everybody, like, people bring you hot dishes, and you're in this tight community. There's one school. If you don't like that one option, you have to go 20 miles down the road. We're just in this like fishbowl together. And for me, there became a real disconnect between what I knew to be true and important to me in my heart and what I was experiencing like in my church settings and just politically, you know, and seeing the things like that Donald Trump was saying and putting out there, and then seeing my like streets lined with like signs for him. It's like, that doesn't match. And I also, you know, I have 2 black children born in Haiti, foreign born, and I just really spent a lot of again, not to go on too much of a tangent, but when they came home in 2014, I did a lot of work listening to transracial adoptees that are now adults, that are reflecting and sharing about what their experience was like being adopted from a foreign country, being brought to the United States, and being raised by white parents in white communities. There's not many success stories there. There's not many rainbows and unicorns. There's a lot of hurt and pain and feeling like they really missed out. And I took that to heart, but it took me a few years to really put it into action. I listened for a long time. I really wanted to believe that my community was different. My boys would be okay here. It's a small town. We're secluded away from like the rest of the big bad world. Everybody knows these are Kate's boys. Like, we're solid here. And then again, it's like, then things just shifted. And it's not that I felt like my kids were in danger. I just knew I could do better by them somewhere else. So we tried for a couple years at different opportunities, and nothing quite panned out. We thought we could move home to Duluth. But, yeah, we ended up, the final straw was the end of May 2020. Pandemic had just started, and George Floyd was murdered. And it was like, oh, there it is. And I packed, I knew what I was feeling. I knew what people of color were experiencing and feeling. I saw the world react. And I looked around in my community to see what were they saying. And again, there was just a misalignment. And I knew for my kids, this was the time. Like, this was the trigger. And I packed them up and I traveled to Minneapolis. I was like, I have to see this for myself. With all of these things, I'm a moth to a flame. I will get there. I just want to go where the story is happening. And we just pulled right up to George Floyd Square. And it was a day a memorial was happening, and Al Sharpton's voice was blaring on the speakers, and there were thousands of people, and my kids were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "That is called a parking meter." Like, we were just like, and that is graffiti. Like, they were so isolated. And so they were upper elementary age at that time. And so we had a lot of conversations, and came up, and namely, what I saw at George Floyd Square when we pulled up was so much solidarity, so much grief, so much celebrating, so much helping each other, so much community. And I saw my black kids blend in with the crowd. And that was something I had never experienced with them. Since they had been in their home country, they had never had that experience. And there was something about that where I swear they stood a little taller, and it just felt like home. And from George Floyd Square, I called Jake. I said, "We're moving to Minneapolis. Like, this is home. These are my people. Like, this is where we need to be." So we had a great time in northern Minnesota raising our babies, and it was very special. And I just knew that was the time then we needed to shift. And, again, long story short, I don't know. I talk a lot, but I apologize. This is not even the question you asked.
Good platform for you then.
But, now my kids are teenagers, and they're high schoolers, and, their friends are black, their friends are brown, their friends are white, they're everybody. But we were able to just really be strategic about where we moved, and it all worked out, and we're where we need to be.
What led you to adoption?
Yeah, Jake and I were actually very, very involved in our church. Our Christian faith was very important to us. It was so important to us. It was the basis of our relationship, our marriage, and then raising our family. It was very important. We were very active in our church. And we are approaching our 10-year anniversary, which would have been 2013, end of 2012 maybe. And we just saw a blurb in our church bulletin about a trip. There was one other family in the community that had adopted from Haiti, and they would frequent Haiti quite a bit. They also were in the process of a second adoption at the time, so they would lead trips down there.
Okay.
Mission trips, which I now have very mixed feelings about. So everything is nuanced. But I looked at Jake in church, and I said, maybe instead of a trip for our 10-year anniversary, maybe we could, and he said, go to Haiti. And I said, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. We didn't have a lot of money at the time. I think I'd just become a stay-at-home mom. I'd resigned from teaching to be home with my 3 little kids, and so we raised the money. It was maybe like $1,000 each or something, but we raised the money. We went on this trip, and we had no intention of adoption. But there was something about loving being a mother, and then arriving to this little village and rolling through the gates of this orphanage, and looking around, and it was late at night. I'll never forget this. My short-term, long-term, my memory fails me every day, but I will never forget rolling into that orphanage and looking around and just seeing like these little houses and kids, and then kids running up to me and just like scooping them up, and them just being excited we were there, and then looking around and just seeing kids in cribs and nannies at work, and just being like this overwhelming feeling of like, oh, this is a reality. This isn't just like a poster up in my church anymore. Like, these are real children who at the time, there's like a little asterisk there, at the time I truly believed they all needed a mother. And for somebody who loves motherhood, it moved me. I just, kind of cliche, but I just wanted to take them all. And then, but I put it out, I was actually expecting at the time. And that is the baby that we did lose eventually. But it was the last day, and we had this particular bond with a 1-year-old. He had just turned 1, or was just turning 1 as we were leaving, named Mackie. And Jake looked at him and said, "What would we name you if you were ours?" And I looked at him and I said, "Don't even joke. Don't joke. I would do it, so don't even play." And he said, "Well, I would." And I was like, "Okay, well, maybe we better ask about it." And so we went to the orphanage director, and we were not old enough. We had not been married. There were 3 requirements, and we did not meet any of them. We were not old enough, had not been married long enough, and we had too many biological children.
Oh, wow.
Those were the requirements. So in a way, I was like, oh, good. Like,
We asked,
don't
we
have
can't.
to think, yeah, we cannot. It is a closed door. Well, the baby that I was carrying had passed away, and I didn't realize, I knew I hadn't been growing. I knew this pregnancy felt different, and I didn't have any symptoms anymore. I didn't realize I'd lost the baby, and I didn't know that until we landed at home. And yeah, we went through that experience of
I'm
a
so
miscarriage.
sorry.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
awful. And what they say, 1 in 4 women go through that, and it's still just like feels so lonely and isolating and devastating. So yeah, we went through that, and I just remember that the grief process was soothed as I remembered my time in Haiti, and people would come visit me, and I was sad, I was devastated, and there was great hope and joy every time I could tell them about my trip and about this little baby that I met as well. And I talked to Jake, and I said, I feel like we need to keep trying. We need to maybe keep trying for that baby. I had a friend tell me, she came and sat on my couch, and I said to her, keep in mind I was very religious and very prayerful, and I just said, I feel, and I think now I would call it more of an intuition, but I said, I don't feel like I'm meant to be pregnant again right now, because she had said, you can try again, like you can have another baby, which is probably not in the top things you can say, should say to somebody who just lost a baby,
Sure.
but she said that, and I just said, I don't feel like I should be pregnant right now. I just felt this pull to this baby that we did not meet any of the requirements to parent according to Haiti. So we reached out to the orphanage again. I don't know if she forgot who we were, but she said, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it.
So you didn't need any of those requirements anymore?
We did not meet those requirements, but I think she was willing to take our money. She was willing to see us through. About a few months later, I traveled down to Haiti with paperwork about this tall. I sat it on my lap for the whole flight because I would not let it out of my sight, and delivered it myself to the orphanage and got the process going. And in that process, in that trip, kind of long story short, and you can ask more about it, but we ended up going forward to adopt our second son at the same time. So, and he was probably 3 or 4 at the time. So he was an older boy, in the orphanage, and he was added to our file as well. And I just said, I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to keep going through this until the door is officially closed, until they're like, absolutely not, you may not do this. And the doors just kept on bursting wide open. The laws changed. Timing was perfect. And a process that can now take 3 to 5 years, it took us about 1.5 years to
Wow.
get the kids home. So they came home November 2014, and now they're very busy teenage boys who they'll both be in high school next year and play basketball and have a ton of friends and play video games, all that stuff. So
What are the dynamics of having a family, blended races, having black kids? You're obviously white.
yeah, that's a great question that I'm really happy that you asked. I think I'm just going to say, I think white parents fail every day, myself included. But we go into this with great intention. That all you need is love. I've come to almost hate that saying because you need so much more. Like, we're going to adopt these kids. They'll fit right in. We just need to love them, and it's going to be great. And we've seen time and time again that's not enough. And the adult adoptees will tell you that's not enough. I've seen in lots of chat rooms and Facebook groups of adoptive parents, their Christian identity is enough. Nothing else matters. All lives matter. That kind of mindset of like, it doesn't matter your skin color, but it does. And when parents fail to recognize that, when parents take children, again, good intentions, but it lands painfully. We take them from their home countries where everybody looks the same and it's all they know. And then we bring them into, my kids went from a tropical, all black little island in the Caribbean to the depths of winter in northern Minnesota where nobody looked like them. And again, taking them from everything they knew. So there's just so many layers of it. So again, and we stayed in Minnesota or northern Minnesota for another 6 years after that. So, things we did, we don't ignore the fact that they're black and that we're white, and we talk about that difference. We talk about their past in Haiti. I celebrate their mothers. Their mothers are still alive. My boys, turns out, children of poverty and orphans of poverty, excuse me, and so their mothers still exist. And so that, again, another tangent I'm happy to go down if you'd like, but we talk about their moms, we talk about race, we talk about everything. We just bring it to the forefront. And then things we did in northern Minnesota, there were other adoptee groups, so we'd continuously try to keep those connections with other kids who had been adopted, especially from Haiti. But ultimately, there were a lot of joyous things too. Like my son got an older brother and a younger brother in one shot, and they were just like the three little amigos. So fun, so great. Also really hard on my biological son. I mean, that was a lot to go from mama's only boy to having a brother, older and younger. People who look at my family, we're just like this little wolf pack. We just exist and we work together. It works. It's loud, it's messy, it's busy, but it just works. So as far as a family, I feel like we're solid. But yes, when it comes to race, truly, people say don't be hard on myself, but I just thought for a long time that it would be okay, and it is. But I feel a lot better about my own motherhood to them now that I've moved to where they have reflective leaders. We moved down when my oldest son was in 5th grade, and we got the notice that his teacher was like, it was during COVID, so they sent a postcard, who's your teacher, let's scratch it off. And we hadn't yet arrived to the Twin Cities anyways, but we scratched it off, and it said, Mr. White. Okay, so I go Google, and his face popped up, and you would have thought we won the lottery. He was a black man. I'm like, if that isn't the exact reason why we're moving, like right there we have this like unicorn, like this like black male teachers in elementary school are far and few between.
Correct.
And here we are moving our entire life on the fly. We fled. I mean, we moved within 2 months. It was up and at it, like gone. And there we're landing with a black teacher. All 3 of my boys have been able to have Mr. White. And he is the product, and he's supported by an organization called Black Men Teach, a little caveat here, but that really pushed to support black men in those roles because it is so important. So finally, it's like I was able to provide him black neighbors, black friends, multicultural school, and a black teacher to look up to. And what listeners might not realize, like, people want to say race doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't see color. Nails on a chalkboard to me, but I'm trying to have grace for it because they just don't know. They want to believe that saying I don't see color is a thing, but it's not possible, and it's not reality, and it's not healthy or safe. So my sons will be better because they've had black teachers, black friends. Like, they won't feel so isolated and alone. So yeah, we just try to we're intentional about a lot of things based on the makeup of our family. And I think every family does that for themselves, whether they realize it or not. But for us, it just looks different than most people might expect.
If you were talking to somebody who is thinking about adopting internationally, what would you say to them? If they wanted your honest feedback.
And people do ask. I would say just really examine their intention. What is your goal? And think really critically about it. And I would probably ask people some pretty uncomfortable questions. Because when people have asked me in the past, I asked this of one parent, what led you to adopt from Ethiopia? And she looked me square in the eyes and said, white saviorism. I was like, oh, but I'm ching, like, that's it. That is the real truth. We go in thinking that we are doing some grand gesture. We're helping save the world. Those are all noble things that you want to do. You want to help. I'm a helper at heart. I saw kids without moms. I want to help that situation. But is adopting children internationally a solution? Is that actually helping? Because pretty sure, actually I know for a fact, my son's mothers are still swimming in poverty. And mothers still don't have access to birth control. They don't have a good clinic system. They don't have functional infrastructure to support mothers and their young babies. They don't have breastfeeding education. So what could actually be helpful? And then if they're still dead set on it, do you have an ethical adoption agency with a good reputation? Are these children actually orphaned? That is probably the biggest problem in international adoption. Are they actually orphans? When you start putting dollars on babies and Americans who want to be helpful and use their dollars to, help the world, it becomes a dangerous, slippery slope. And I don't say that lightheartedly. I say it because I've seen it over and over again. And I spent significant time at my kids' orphanage, and over time, I got to see I spent 3 weeks there at one shot, and then I would visit every few months. And I just started to think, this is not what I signed up for. And that I'm not alone. And I just had that rare behind the scenes look. And I don't know, so from that, I'll just say, I do want to say that I have become very passionate about orphan prevention. For example, there's a clinic in Haiti called Heartline Ministries. They provide birth control, but then also their program is pregnant women come to them. They are educated about prenatal care, nutrition, all the things. They're provided a meal. They get all the labor, classes. Then they're given a safe place to deliver right there in the clinic where they feel comfortable. They have a safe, supported birthing environment with qualified nurses and midwives. Then they go on to have parenting class and child development classes with their babies for another set of months. And that is orphan prevention. And then, again, the birth control. Because people don't realize how poor these countries are, and sometimes women aren't given choices. Women need places to stay. And sometimes a place to stay means that you're not in a safe place. And you end up with these pregnancies. And it's not, these moms love their kids, and sometimes adoption feels like the only way to love their babies. And
terrible position to be in.
Yeah. So I am in a really fortunate spot where I've been able to keep in touch with my boys' moms. and we call them mom. And I am the second mom, and I'm real clear about that. I can't take back what I did. I didn't commit a crime, but sometimes I feel like I did. And like there's more I could have done. It costs tens of thousands of dollars to adopt children. And there were so many Christian organizations willing to give us money to help us and pray for us. And I just want to just change the perspective. Like those things can be needed and used, but we don't talk enough about the root of the issue. And it's like, we can do so much to prevent the need for adoption. So the question was, what would I tell adoptive parents? And I would just say, like, listen to transracial adoptees, or listen to adoptees in general. Look into the corruption in the system. Have there been reports? Have there been studies? People complain about it being a 5-year wait. Well, because we keep messing it up. We keep the corruption going by feeding into it. And therefore, we need all these hoops to go through to make sure you're legit. So, I don't know. It's a whole big topic.
That is a big topic.
Yeah.
You currently live in Minneapolis.
Yeah, suburb just north of Minneapolis, Brooklyn Park.
Okay. What is it like having sons of color in Minneapolis right now?
Yeah. You know, we chose Brooklyn Park strategically. We asked what was the most diverse place in Minneapolis we could live. And it was Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center. There weren't houses big enough for us in Brooklyn Center, so Brooklyn Park it was. It's predominantly people of color, a lot of large Liberian and Hmong population, high black population. So I really felt so safe going there. And however, with recent decisions by Donald Trump and his administration, of course, places like ours are a target. And, you know, it's a scary time. It's awful. And personally, whether I had black kids or not, I would still be horrified. I would still be out at protests. I would still be speaking out against it because it is so awful. This is so clearly not about criminal investigations or catching predators or any. This is an attack on Minnesota. This is a revenge job. This is racial profiling in the worst of ways. And so it's been awful. My oldest son is 17 and, you know, internationally adopted, and he has a certificate of citizenship. And I've made color photocopies of it, and I'm like, please put one in your car, keep one in your wallet. I was at work at school the other day, which you can't just leave. But I've heard ICE was outside in our neighborhood, just right down the street. And I had to go all afternoon knowing that my son was coming home from school. And I heard they were just stopping people at random, which I've heard is very illegal. And that fear I had, like the anxiety and the sadness is always simmering. But then knowing that those agents were in our neighborhood stopping people, and then seeing the irresponsible and untrained way that they operate in our communities, I was terrified. Told my kids, please go straight home. It's being a mom right now is this weird balance of making your kids feel safe while also having to give them this reality. It's like, we may never see an ICE agent in our neighborhood again, but on that day, and we travel around for basketball, things like that, it's just like trying to prepare them for evil. And my son is 17. He's so shy, in the sweetest of ways. We've talked, anybody who has a black child would, especially black parents, would say, you have the talk with your kids. There's just a different way that you have to be aware in society. And then now there's this. And I've talked my son through like job interviews. That was honestly so painful. I had to like sit with him during a virtual interview, and I'm like, oh no, okay, we'll get there someday. Like that was really good practice, and now I'm like, oh shit, like what happens if it's an ICE agent? He's not only going to be nervous, but this is going to be scary. And he is a licensed driver. Like I probably will not be next to him, coaching him and giving him that reassurance. Like, what would that look like? And I just shudder at the thought. So, yeah, it's just scary right now. And I don't know. And just as a citizen, it's like, what more can we do except just be loud about it? I'm just unapologetic about it. I think about what would my mugshot look like. And, I just get real comfortable with that thought. I used to be somebody to just stay quiet to keep everybody else happy or to just fit the molds. I think so many women can relate to that. And I'm done. I'm like, I think about if I say something or if I do something that might jeopardize my job, then so be it. Like, I try to put myself back in like Anne Frank. Like, what would I have done? Do you think any of those people who helped ever regretted it? No. I've reached out to people who I know are on certain visas, hey, I'm here. Like, my house is open. I'm okay saying that. I almost hate to say it because it's like I hate and love it. And I think that is just meaningful to people to know that we recognize the stress. And anyways, yeah, as a parent, it's been hard. As a teacher, almost harder because it's so many.
Do you teach in Brooklyn Park?
I teach in a different suburb
in
the same district, and high Hispanic population. And, we knew like the what's the word, takeover, the infiltration happened beginning of January. And you just think, okay, you just don't know what you don't know. You don't know how bad it's going to be. You don't know what it's going to look like. Kids start not showing up to school. And again, it's winter. Hey, were you sick? Where were you? Missed you. Well, 8 years old. My mom doesn't have papers. And just like that, like in my head, thinking 1,000 miles an hour, oh my gosh, like we're here. We're in hiding. Our students are in hiding. And then lo and behold, you start hearing about ICE agents stalking out bus stops and parents not feeling safe to, whether you're legal status or not. Like it doesn't matter. People are being approached and terrorized no matter what. And seeing that affect that students that I work with every day, students that I love and care for, that has been, it's almost, there were a couple days where I almost couldn't function. I was so sad. Probably should have taken some time off, but I just like don't want to not show up for my kids either. So I haven't learned to compartmentalize. My assistant principal said, oh, well, we kind of have to, try to compartmentalize. I was like, I'm also feeling very validated in my fear and anxiety right now, and I know I wasn't alone. Like, as a staff, we are very united in this, and so just had a couple rough days with coping, and now I've learned to cope. I've learned that I can go into my school building. Every day I am in the welcome line, and I get to give high fives and hugs to kids every day. And it has just given me new life in that sense, where when I say I am so happy to see you, it is like truly from the depths of my soul. I am so happy you're here. And so, yeah, it's day by day, and I hope it's all over soon.
I have a theory that I think people, especially people who don't live in Minnesota, and people who don't consume news in a variety of platforms, don't actually know what's going on.
Right.
And Because I choose to think that, because I refuse to think that people understand what's going on
Yep.
and aren't outraged. Do you
Yep.
think that's right? Or is that
I-
wishful thinking?
Absolutely. We see it in comment sections on social media all the time. There can be something so blatantly wrong on film, in a picture, in a story. And there will always be people who will do backwards somersaults and twists and the most creative things to justify it. I'm real frank. It is like white supremacy. It is right wing, like extremism at play. And there's no reasoning. And I just don't, I wish I knew how to crack the code. Because I lived in a predominantly right-leaning area for a very long time, and I was in those communities. There's so much I could say about that, but and I still have conversations with them from time to time about the complexities of like what's happening now and what has continued to happen over the last few years and forever. And they're just so desperate to find a way to justify it or to say, like, that's not really how it is. And it doesn't matter if they'll think proximity to people of color. Well, I work with somebody who's Mexican. I'm not racist. Well, here's the deal. Like, your proximity our proximity to anybody, just because I have black kids doesn't mean I'm not racist. Just because you work with somebody and you're nice to them doesn't mean you're not racist. We're all products of the systems that were built on white supremacy, and that is, you read and listen, it is very clear. And I think it's just really hard for people to acknowledge that, take ownership over it, and then take action for it and responsibility and learn and do better. People just so want to believe these are the other people. And if they know people of color, well, those ones are good, but then the rest are bad. They don't say that explicitly, but they say it over and over again in, like, they call it, the word is going to escape me, but it's like they just cannot acknowledge. Or like, if they acknowledge it, they're giving up on something that they've like tied themselves to.
That's where I was going to go with
Yeah.
it, is that I think what I see is that people attach their identities to
Yes.
political parties and political figures.
Mhm.
And so it's really hard for them to step back and
Right.
question and perhaps criticize because they are so intimately tied to that idea or that person that
Right.
it's confusing to them
Right.
and it's difficult to do.
It's almost like what we do as moms sometimes. I mean, there's some elements of being a mom where if I get an email from school or something and I'm told like my kid did something, like, oh, we're going to take care of this right now. But there's also like a part of us that will never abandon our child. Like,
Yeah.
this is our baby, and like they're our everything. and like there are times where maybe like there, as a teacher, I know too, like there's parents who like their child can do no wrong. It's almost like that mindset.
It's
of
a really
like,
good analogy.
okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
It's like there's the set of parents that's just like what do you mean she cheated on the test? Like, she would never do that. Absolutely. No, it surely must be the other kid's fault. I mean, that is a real story that I encountered as a middle school teacher. And I'm like, but I'm telling you exactly what I saw and what happened. And it was like, nope, it is somebody else's fault. And it's that mentality. And I wish I knew how to break through. I think it takes a lot of patience and listening and hand-holding, because it's a sensitive thing. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. It's really hard. But I don't know. It's rough.
All right, Parently listeners, that's all we have time for today. Please tune in again next week for part 2 with Kate. And if you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review.